Movie miniatures had been around obviously for a long time. There's a lot of history on that leads up to it. But Star Wars broke so much new ground, aesthetically as well as technologically, that suddenly it kind of leaped into the front of everybody's consciousness. And the neat thing about it was that we got to make things. We got to fool around, learn how to do it. We got to make real objects. And this went on for a good while until the computers came in and just kind of gently nudged us into the background more and more. A lot of the films that I worked on, I'm not proud of as movies, and I'm not proud to say I worked on that. It becomes just incidental. Oh, yeah, I did some work on that. But there are moments where pride is a huge factor regarding individual pieces of work, not the whole film. I'm embarrassed about some of the films that we worked on, but there were good moments in almost all of those. There were good scenes, there were good miniatures and good effects. And so it's difficult to sort out. I was very proud of the small amount of work that I did on Ghostbusters, and I'm not real sure why I got a credit on it, because there were a lot of people that did a lot more on Ghostbusters who didn't end up on the credit roll. But the things that I did on that were kind of neat. 2010, I spent a lot of time on 2010, and I don't know if hardly any of the stuff that I actually had my hands on ends up in the picture. Sure, I was proud of it, but it's not one of my favorite films, and some of the things in it are nice, but it's, you know, we move on. I have to say Beetlejuice, and not really in terms of miniatures here, because I was the head of creature mechanical effects. But Beetlejuice was one of the films that I can say I'm proud of working on that film. That's a fun film. We had a great time doing it. We learned a lot, and it was a wonderful experience. There's a dark side to the high budget films, because you have to wonder why that budget is so high. Is it because we're in the dark here and we're going to have a lot of R&D, or is it because it's a long, hairy project? Sometimes the money valve is wide open and you almost have too much freedom, and you can get a little self-indulgent. You can start spending money just because it's so much fun to spend other people's money. I can name a couple of shows where this was the case for a while. Small budget, you would be talking about Gene Warren and Greg Jean and some people like that who are masters of getting a whole lot of stuff up on the screen for very, very small amounts of money. And there is where the creativity really comes in. This is where either if you're constrained in terms of money or time, or what often happens both, you really have to have a full tool bag. You have to be able to reach deep and pull out something that's going to work pretty quickly, or you're not the guy for the job. So these are the growth spurts. These are when you really find out what you're made of. This is when there's not much money or not much time. So that talking about adrenaline, that's when it really comes into play. Well, it's become necessary for people in my line of work to be able to wear many hats. And CGI has made this all the more important, because miniatures are still used, but they're used on a very different sort of way. They're used at very large scales, and a lot of times it's a situation where you have pyro or breakaways or collapsing or something on a pretty grand scale, where before it was like a little vehicle or a little piece of a set that was on a motion control rig that you could take your time with and really jewel out and get it perfect, and then put it up there and have it move in a very careful, studied sort of manner over and over again. And nowadays it's a matter of big, hairy stuff. It usually involves dragging fire hose around in the middle of the night with somebody screaming at you, as opposed to sitting at a comfortable bench with nice lights and a little fan going and your cup of coffee and all your delicate little tools, doing this kind of Swiss watch craftsmanship that we used to do.